I'm not going to present my paper. So,
Okay.
no, I think it's better that we entertain questions. We have such all-stars that it would be really short, bad treatment of our presenters not to have questions, given all that's been said and everything. So,
I shouldn't present your
well, you introduced me quickly, Gordon Brady, and
now.
yeah, well,
I have here, excuse me. I need this one. There is here Gordon Brady presentation. Gordon Brady presentation. Yeah, just 5 minutes because honestly, Gordon Brady. Okay. The important aspect of Gordon Brady, it are two. One, it is that he studied with Jim Buchanan and Gordon Tullock at VPI, the Virginia Center, where the public choice theory was constructed after the initial period of formation in the Charlottesville, Virginia, where I was. So he is a public choice man who knows it from the beginning of his research. The other aspect it is that he studied and then became with a degree, but he wanted also to have a law degree with a very important situation that is Guido Calabresi School at Yale. And this is, I would say, something which is honestly missing in the public choice construct as such normally. So gives him a more operational view from the point of view of the critical aspect of the rules, including the constitutional rules. Finally, he is also, as you can see, basically mixed the academic career with the career of advising politician in the Senate. And for this reason, in a sense, he was in his mission of being an economist, preaching the good economics, very honest, because he preferred to go in the battle with his knowledge rather than to be on the chair to pray. And this, I think, is the best introduction I can do for him.
thank you. Thank you very much. My paper will be available on the Atlantic website. I'd like to get some questions, and could you focus them?
You won't speak even for a few minutes?
I don't. We've got 9 minutes left or something. And I could flash through it'd be like, what do you call them, subliminal advertising or something. But I really, because of the great panel we have, it would not do them justice if we didn't hit several of them very hard with questions and try to focus on a specific person or on specific issues. And so, anybody got questions? Yes? Oh, yeah. Professor Bellini, I know you have one. Professor Calamaris?
What's been such a pleasure, what a great panel, is the discussion has really brought out the conflict between what we'd all like to see and the difficulties of getting there, and then all of our confusion about what I would call positive politics rather than positive economics. That is, how the political process is likely to behave, which is really the unknown that's been driving a lot of the problems. And my own perspective on this is pretty pessimistic. That is, we're now in the fourth year since the crisis that broke out in 2010 in Greece. Unemployment is 27%. We finally had some progress on the primary deficit. We're into primary surplus now. but my own perception is absolutely very limited progress on the key points, which have to do with government expenditures trajectory, that have to do with competition policy, that have to do with labor policy. And the thing that's even more depressing is that we're now having a sort of declaration of victory. The bond market on Greek debt is improving dramatically. And I think what's going on there is it's about the election next month in Greece and the need to declare victory to preserve the current government. And there's a general conspiracy within Europe to try to boost the government by pretending that they've achieved things that they haven't. How much longer can a country tolerate 50% youth unemployment? It's shocking to me that they've tolerated it this long. That's maybe good news in some sense, but I think we've also had the bad news of that the government is willing to remain sort of corrupt and unwilling to make the fundamental choices for many years in a row. So I think that they all need to come to grips with this question.
Professor Huerta's yes. To head out. But.
Well, I would say that Spain, for instance, we suffered also 25% unemployment in the last, before we entered the euro, in the last crisis we suffered. Of course, we are not in a perfect world. I think the discussion should be about the possibilities, and I'm pretty sure that at least for Spain, and I'm very sure also for Portugal, which is a case I know with a lot of detail, the disciplinary framework of the euro is working. Definitely. You know, the amount of suffering that society can support is almost unbelievable, provided that there is a good framework that forces people in the good direction. And of course, for the reason I try to summarize in my paper, I think that the alternative, keeping outside the euro in a flexible exchange rate environment, would be much worse. And I wouldn't be so much pessimistic about Greece. I think that Greece is also in a historical moment. Without the euro, Greece would be a second rank country for generations, and I think that they are now doing or beginning to do their homework. I'm not so much pessimistic as you are. People from the States and also from England tend to be quite critical about the euro. I think you criticize the euro for the wrong reasons. It's something similar to Robert Mandel, that he was defending the euro for the wrong reasons. That's the real reason I try to present an original and different defense of the euro from the Austrian point of view. Is my only contribution.
Professor Schwartz?
I think that the Western countries have missed the opportunity of the crisis. Not only Greece, but also Spain and America. There's been some cutting down of expenditure, some reduction of civil servants, but the central ideas of the welfare state, the large government, intervention in the labor market, changed a little bit, but on the whole, democracies have not posed the problem, the deep problem of the kind of system we have cannot go on. And we've seen that in the United States with the Obamacare and the increase in expenditure there, and in many other places. They all say, we are going to change this so as to preserve the welfare state. And so I am a little pessimistic that I don't think that in most countries, perhaps not in Switzerland, but in most countries it will be very difficult for people to pose the central question. Can we go on having a democracy whose main job is to share out and to give subsidies?
Professor Sant'Agostino? And we'd like to have quite short responses, and then we have one more question that we can entertain, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I will be very, very brief. So first of all, continuing on the line indicated by Professor Roberto De Soto, today the euro is considered as the cause of the crisis, and also the European Union is considered as a propagator of the crisis? Well, I think that actually the euro can help economies to overcome this crisis. First of all, obliging them to reduce public expenditure, as has been done in Greece, partially in Spain, and look for more competitiveness of their economies. Besides, in a globalized world, the tool of devaluation can no more be used, considering that enterprises are the fractionment of production of the chain value, so most of the intermediate input are imported. Second, I would say that to overcome this crisis, or to find again high rate of growth, we should concentrate on the single market. The single market is a big asset. No? If we sum up the flow of goods, services, and investments, we reach around 4,000 euro. 4,000 euro is the sum of the GDP in Germany and in France. So this is the way out. It's a great asset that we have, and that we should evaluate more in order to get out of this crisis, and also consequently to reduce the youth unemployment rate.
Professor Forte, you have comments?
Well, I am not very much optimistic. For the reason is that many people believe that the Keynesian policy works, so that when politicians don't do given reforms, it is because they are able to demonstrate politically, and because the economists are behind them in the majority of cases, that they are right to do so. And therefore, seems to me that the biggest problem is a problem that, in a sense, Keynes cynically had forecast, as a forecast. That is, that the science, economic science of the present is the economic science of the past. And this past science, which was the theory of the welfare state as the way out to increase growth on the demand side, rather than the supply side approach, is still dominant, because it was applied after the war in a different conditions, and probably was not working in the same way as now, because after the war the regulation didn't exist, and now they do exist, so the market was more flexible, and therefore was a different situation. So my conclusion is that Europe should enforce the two rules of level of taxation, particularly taxation of saving, which is now dominant theory in Brussels. In Brussels, there is a theory that one should shift taxes from labor to capital, and from labor to savings. The only suggestion Italy observed was among the suggestion of Europe to increase the taxes on saving, and also now in Italy there will be an increase of taxes on saving to reduce the labor tax at the lower level of income. And so with this kind of suggestion, we still will have a crisis because at the European level we get the wrong suggestion or a mix of good and wrong suggestion. So what we need is to criticize Europe from the point of view of the fact that does not enforce the rule of tax limitation and the rule of labor flexibility.
Okay. Professor Bolino had, I know he has some questions, so. And we'll go to Professor De Soto first on that.
I'm actually standing between you and lunch, so I will only make a comment as an econometrician to the excellent work of Professor Forti. I would like to draw the attention of all others who are not econometricians as myself, that all the tests they have made are robust, but because we econometricians have never satiated, there could be another one which I think will reinforce his work, and this is my prediction. Notice that many people say, this is my comment, well, but after the big crisis 2007-2008, the world has changed, so you should make a specific test for your theory. He has a long-run period of data, you have noticed. You should make a specific test for changing regime in that particular sub-period. Well, the Pesaran-Shin type of test Silvia Fedeli has done, and I'm a great fond of the work of Silvia Fedeli, the colleague of Professor Forte in Rome, certainly could accommodate also this type of doubt, namely that the theory, the conclusion they present econometrically is robust not only for the long-run period of the observation, but also for the sub-period, say 2008, 2012, 13, which is the last period. So with this prediction, namely that his conclusion will be reinforced even by the extra test, I wish all success to the theory of Professor Forti, because this is something we need, I think, in our profession. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor De Soto, do you have comments on that? You don't? And
I was commenting on the that's a deep methodological matter. An econometric study, it's a good historical illustration, but the important thing is what is the underlying theory. So I'm very much in agreement with the result of the paper, but I'm still doubting the real reason of that result, because I would like to see what is I have some ideas about the underlying theory that could explain the results. So econometric studies is a good thing, like a historical illustration of a previous theory that we should discuss in advance. That's my only methodological, of course, always following the Austrian approach in this matter. The same could be applied with not so deep criticism to Professor Schwartz's paper.
Okay.
In what way? What we've done is we've measured the dispersion, which is greater in Europe than in the States. The theory is that if you want an optimal currency zone, it's easier to manage it if you don't have the dispersion in all these things. We haven't. I don't see where the methodological criticism is.
Well, it is precisely that the analysis of optimum currency areas is an equilibrium analysis in which you consider that the framework, institutional framework, is given statically. It's not going to be changed. But if you follow a dynamic approach, the institutional framework can be changed precisely if there is a rigid monetary framework that forces everyone to make the changes. So it's a kind of a paradox, but Mandel's theory of optimum currency areas provided the ammunition the enemies of the euro needed to criticize the euro. It's a kind of a paradox. Even Krugman, in his last book, ends this recession now. He uses all Mandel's argument on optimum currency areas, as well as Milton Friedman arguments defending flexible exchange rates, with the unique goal to attack the euro.
Well, it would be a long discussion.
Okay. Yes,
I hate methodological discussions. They don't get you anywhere.
Professor Sant'Agostino, do you have any comments? And then Professor Forte. I know lunch is waiting, but goodness, such a great group of people. So, Angelo, do you have? You're obligated.
Yes, thank you. Well, concerning monetary union, my main conviction is that monetary union is something which was needed. It was not an option. At the point where it reached in European construction, with a single market already around to start, because a single market was, let's say, constructed between 68 and 93. So 93 it started. We needed a single currency, and this I say on the ground that in an integrated area with free flow of goods, services, and capital, we need fixed exchange rate. And to have fixed exchange rate, monetary policies cannot be independent. I think this was the most important argument in favor. Once you have a free circulation, the system becomes very fragile if interest rates are volatile. So that is the main argument, and I don't know, I do not continue not to be
Sure. Professor
long.
Forte, do you have...
Yeah, my only objection to De Soto it is of this kind. If one does an empirical research with a given result, the other can do a different empirical research with other variables to show whether the results are different, or to write an historical or institutional paper to show that. So until I will not see that, I will still stay with the results we got. Honestly, when we started the reasoning, we did not know, and I must say that of this group of people, only one of them was originally in favor of a balanced budget. The other two were against. Then they were convinced. So
we're all in favor of a balanced budget, but you do need a theory, and Nehru is the wrong sort of concept, because it says that inflation depends on wages, which it doesn't, and the output gap is not a theory either. How do you know the output gap? You take the trend and what happens. So it's very important when you do econometric work that the concepts that they use are concepts that are solid. And clearly Nehru is not solid, because inflation depends on money. It doesn't depend on wages.
No, excuse me. If we reach the same conclusion without Nehru and without output gap, maybe by chance means that Nehru and out gap are not good proxies. But anyway, I am able to prove that the opposite theory would be wrong.
Right.
You see.
But why use
I
Nehru?
demonstrated that we demonstrated the opposite theory is wrong. So even using those kind of instruments...
But why use them? Why use them if they are wrong?
Because they are at the European level the existing rule. So,
I was going to say, I think it's more convincing if you take your opponent's point of view and methodology and show the consequences even within that, which is how I read what you were doing.
yes.
Fine. Yeah. I see what you mean.
I don't like Nehru, of course, but out gap in my theory doesn't exist as such, because there are many variables. But if they want to do that way, I can show that they are wrong also in that way.
Well, I think we have to wind up this most stimulating session. I wish there were ways of, continuing this indefinitely. Perhaps if we could generate something on the website for threads. Yeah, it would be, yes. So thank you so much. Really wonderful, and I would say a standing ovation is more appropriate.